We've all got to deal with frustrating people, bullies, bosses, family, narcissists. Over the last 8 years, I've been studying Eastern philosophy, and I want to share with you today the 4-step process of how we can deal with the frustrating people in our lives, how we can reduce conflict, navigate tension with a bit more skill, and ultimately find a bit more peace. So idea number 1 comes from the Taoists from ancient China. And one of the big ideas in Taoism is the power of yielding. The Taoists help us imagine in a storm in a forest, what are the trees likely to survive? The big, stiff, sturdy ones or the flexible saplings? So much of the messaging in our society is you've got to defend yourself. Don't let them say that to you. But it's actually a lot of energy to always be fighting. And we can find a big release through actually choosing just to yield and let it go. You might know the classic story of 2 men walking down a narrow path and they see each other and realize that they're enemies. They reach each other and one of them has to pass away. And the first man says, "I shall not pass for a pig." And the second man says, "I, by contrast, will. Good day, sir." So that is the power of the yielding. Like, where are you just entering into conflict in your life where maybe you can just step back, let them do their ignorant, conflicty stuff, and you can serve your precious energy so you can really enjoy your life. If you can serve your energy and you're joyful and living freely, surely you actually have won, even though you yielded. But there is a problem with this, which is why we're on a 4-step process. Because even if we want to yield and escape, sometimes we need to stay with it, and sometimes the frustrating people, they're going to keep following us. Like when I was 16, I went to a new school and it was something like out of High School Musical. There were the jocks, there were the beautiful girls, there were the nerds, and then there was me, not friends with anyone. And one of the jocks, a big rugby lad, didn't like me. And every time we would walk past each other, he would get in my space, touch me and make noises. And I really didn't like this. And I tried to yield, I tried to do nothing, but the bully kept coming back. So yeah, sometimes we need to face the challenge. And how do we do that with skill? So stage number 2 is to express your feelings and needs with skill. The most powerful tool that I've found in my life, and in my view is essential life learning for everyone, to help us communicate our feelings and needs in ways that are likely to be heard by the other people, is nonviolent communication. I've got a link for the book in the description. Nonviolent communication has 4 stages, and we'll come back to the bully and see how I dealt with him. But let's maybe take an example of when you're at work. Say your boss is giving you work outside of work hours. Often we just keep the resentment and the injustice inside and we don't express it until suddenly we blow. And maybe we react out of proportion. Nonviolent communication gives us the tools and the training to be able to express ourselves earlier in a way that's likely to be heard by the other person. So the 4 stages are: 1, observation. Hey boss, you're giving me work outside of my work hours. The feelings, this is stressful for me because I've got my kids back at home. The needs, I have a need for consideration for my family life. And then a request. Our request is okay that I'll get to the work the next day. These 4 stages may sound simple, but it is actually pretty hard to express observations without judgments. It's so easy to go into, "You're a tyrant, you don't consider me," which obviously the boss is just going to react to that because they're an emotional human being, and that will likely to lead to more conflict or disconnection. Whereas if we can stay grounded in the observation, this is what you've done, this is how I feel, this is what I need as a human being, and this is what I ask you to do. A really powerful way to actually be heard so that you're more likely to get what you really need. So that's stage 2. However, say with my bully, the bully didn't really care about my feelings and needs. So we've got to keep going. Stage 3 is asking for help. If you're dealing with frustrating people, don't just hold it by yourself. At least having emotional support with people you can trust, or maybe going, if it's in a school or work setting, to somebody that can help mediate. It may be actually better for both you and the other person if there's another person to support that dialogue so that you can actually reach a resolution. All right, we're on to stage 4. Now with the bully, the first 3 stages didn't really work. I didn't ask for help, and the first 2 stages didn't work. And so this takes us to stage 4. What happened with me and the bully and how I actually dealt with this frustrating person is I kept on getting frustrated, And then eventually I blew it and I picked this guy up by his neck and just put him against the wall and I said, "If you touch me again, I'll have your guts regardless." But yeah, I literally picked him up against a wall and he never touched me again. So sometimes, like honoring that response, I do feel is appropriate. I mean, there's so many stages before then. And that's the thing, like, I didn't have the skills that I do now to express myself or the confidence to ask for help. And in our society, we talk about being strong so you can defend yourself, which may be appropriate, but non-violence and peaceful resolution, there's so many steps that we can take before we get to the need for having to actually use violence to protect ourselves. And that's a training, non-violence, like anything, is a skill. Non-violent communication can help us. And that non-violence that we take to conflict and differences in our relationships, then if enough of us act with this energy of non-violence, can then begin to feed into how we relate in societies and war and countries and ultimately peace on the planet. So I hope that, 4-step process to deal with frustrating people, to protect your boundaries, to navigate conflict with skill, and ideally resolving differences without violence. I'd love to know what your tips and tricks are down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching.